What was it about Alabama?
LSU Tigers, number one. Go Tigers.
In the next 4 years, I'm going to Denver University.
Call into the Neighbors Wealth Management Hotline, 256-576-4977. Now, here's D Squared.
Welcome, everyone, to the Monday edition of the Recruiting Blitz on Blitz Sports Radio. I am D Squared, Drew D. Armand. We hope you had a great week. And now we are going to kick it off with some Auburn discussion. In just a couple of minutes, we're going to have some interesting audio from Paul Feinbaum recently, who sat down with Nathan King of 24/7 Sports and Ron Sanders to kind of talk about the state of the union with Auburn. And, of course, you can hear the Paul Feinbaum show on our sister station from 2 to 5 p.m. each Monday through Friday. Then, of course, we carry the last hour from 7 to 8 after Stephen West. But some interesting comments about Hugh Freeze and his fit at Auburn. And, of course, the impact he could have on the rivalry and what he's already done in the SEC at Ole Miss. Plus, as we know, with Hugh Freeze, he's done an excellent job on the recruiting trail. But at Ole Miss, we know about the NCAA situation there. But regardless, he brought in a lot of good players. The recruiting momentum seems to be much different under Hugh Freeze than, of course, it was under Brian Harsin. And it couldn't have gotten much worse under Harsin since he didn't really understand Auburn. Hugh Freeze, a lot better fit, and we're going to hear some of that on the show. And we're going to talk to our good friend Cole Pinkston, Auburn, with some good recruiting news over the weekend, and we're going to talk about that. And then really in the last few days, as they've been able to add to their recruiting class, Cole does a great job breaking down film, getting intel on prospects, also kind of previewing to us what some more good news on the horizon for Auburn. So that's going to be some outstanding conversation. Of course, Cole is with Auburn Live on 3, part of on3sports.com. So we look forward to talking about that. We hope you had a great weekend. And don't forget, we're going to have the afternoon blitz later with the Bandyman, Bailey Lowry, Captain Cool, John Abraham, also going to be on with you from 2 to 4. And also, don't forget to, please, work and continue to go see our sponsor. We wouldn't be here without Alumni Hall and alumnihall.com. Alumni Hall, of course, is at the Bridge Street Town Center. For many years, they were just right down from the Apple Store, but now they are next to Belk. And very soon, they will be at their new digs in the Bridge Street Town Center, just down from Buckle, right next to Buckle. Going to have even more square footage, going to add Tennessee to the repertoire. But right now, everybody getting fired up for SEC Media Days next week and football season coming up. Fall camp just around the corner. So if you've got some Alabama or Auburn needs, please go see Andy and the crew over at Alumni Hall. They can take care of you from an Alabama and Auburn perspective right now. And I'm sure you still may need that graduation present, for the college graduations, even high school. We had a lot of folks, just graduate this past May. If you got to get that gift for them or a birthday present coming up, and of course, just getting ready for the season, go to Alumni Hall, sign up for their Hall Pass rewards. For every $150, you get $10 after you spend it, $10 credit. And then in Hall Pass rewards, and you can stack those if you want, or you can use it right away in an online order, or of course at the store in person. Outstanding. And then of course they have a lot of sales. Once you're in their Hall Pass rewards, they will email you, sales that they've got going on, or check their social media, their Instagram, their Twitter, and you can and you will be alerted about upcoming sales that they have, flash sales, even for one day, where you can go in and go by the store, take advantage of that sale, or you can do it online. Because if it's not Alabama, it's Auburn right now. If you're not looking for one of those two of our great state institutions, they have a network of sites where they can take care of the team that you need if you have that special gift. And, of course, if you spend $100, they ship it to you for free. But if not, they have very affordable shipping. both UPS and Economy, and they can get it to you in just a matter of a day or two, if not a few days. And so it's very, very quick and very, very efficient. And we always appreciate the sponsorship of Alumni Hall. But again, we're about to talk to Cole Pinkston here a little bit later in the show. We're going to get an update on Auburn recruiting. But before that, some very interesting comments from Paul Feinbaum of the Paul Feinbaum Show. And we wanted to bring them right now here on this Monday edition of the Recruiting Blitz on Blitz Sports Radio. I'm D Squared. Here are some of the comments from Paul Feinbaum recently with those guys from 24/7 Sports who do a great job. And they, of course, are with Auburn Undercover, part of the 24/7 Sports Network. And we wanted to bring you those interesting comments here on this Monday edition of the Recruiting Blitz on Blitz Sports Radio.
And welcome back, everybody. Another edition here of the Auburn Undercover podcast on the 24/7 Sports Network. My name is Nathan King, joined here by our publisher today, Ronnie Sanders. And we have a very special guest on the show for you guys today. Mr. Paul Feinbaum joins us, obviously a great voice here in the SEC, has been for many, many years. Paul, first of all, thank you so much for joining us today. And how has this offseason been treating you? It's certainly a lot different than it used to be.
Yeah, Nathan and Ronnie, it's been really calm. Last year, there were so many explosions with the NIL and the Jimbo Fisher situation with Saban. This year, quite frankly, there hasn't been that much news, which is okay with me.
Yeah, I guess, I mean, how is the process of what you guys do over on the SEC network and at ESPN? How has that process really changed over the last few years with the emerge? I know everybody says, NIL and transfer portal, similar factors have been in play for a long time. But it really seems like this portion of the offseason is a little bit different than it's been before. Has that really changed for you guys, or have you done anything different in that regard?
Well, the biggest change is that, I started my career many years ago as an investigative reporter, and what you used to look into and try to ferret out. And I mean, there was a time back in the day when I was in Birmingham that I spent several months working on a story involving Alabama and NCAA impropriety. I don't want either one of you to be too surprised by that. And the idea that today it's perfectly legal, or if it's not legal, nobody cares, is really the biggest change I've seen. And it just doesn't matter. You could come to me today and say, hey, by the way, I've heard something about some player, getting this or that. And I would say, well, who cares? Because it's not going to matter. Nobody's going to look into it. And just like the other day, we saw the situation with Will Wade, the former LSU basketball coach. 25 years ago, he probably would have been drummed out of the business. Today, he got a 10-game suspension at McNeese State. And as soon as he gets to the NCAA there, he'll probably get a big-time job again.
No question. What do you think Nick Saban thought when Hugh Freeze was hired?
I think he was bothered by it because Nick Saban knows how good a coach Hugh Freeze is. And I think we harp so much on, Hugh Freeze beat him twice. Well, that's part of the narrative. And we know that has happened so infrequently. But not only that, guys, Hugh Freeze is a respected coach to the degree that Nick Saban wanted to hire him. And the SEC wouldn't let them technically, even though, there was some gray area around that. He thinks the world of him, and he was more than happy to have Gus Malzahn down there those last couple of years recruiting poorly. And I can't tell you how excited he was to have Brian Harsin, who knew less about recruiting in the SEC than the eagle that flies into Jordan-Hare Stadium every Saturday afternoon.
Eagle probably knows more than Harsin did.
That is the rumor, unconfirmed, of course.
I think the Eagle probably knew more people on the campus, I would imagine.
Well, the Eagle saw more of Auburn just flying in than Brian Harsin did in 2 years.
No question.
Paul, how?
Yeah, back to I didn't mean to get off the subject, but he knows what a good recruiter Hugh Freeze is. He knows what a really outstanding play caller he is. He wouldn't have tried to hire him, and I think for the most part, Nick Saban has had it pretty easy at Alabama in relation to Auburn. I around at a time when, and even Ronnie was when he worked down there in the early days, where Auburn, Alabama recruiting was a big deal. Now it hasn't become, it really hasn't been lately, because Auburn has not recruited at the highest level. I can't remember. Well, I'll defer to you guys, but it's been a long time since Auburn recruited at the top 1, 2, 3, 4 level in college football.
It's been a long time, and it's Freeze has really been, to me, he's been really impressive the way he started out. I mean, I think, you tell me, Paul, what compared from a fit standpoint, how does Kiffin compare to? I'm sorry, how does Freeze compare to like a Lane Kiffin that everybody was talking about?
I'm glad you asked me that, because I frankly think Lane Kiffin would have been a misfit at Auburn. I'm a fan of Lane Kiffin. I know what a good coach he is and how smart he is, and I like him immensely. But I thought that was the wrong move for him, because Auburn is different. I will not sit here in North Carolina and try to lecture to guys in Auburn or in Alabama, how important Auburn fit is and what it matters. But I know, having covered that program for many, many years, that Lane would not have been comfortable there. And Hugh Freeze just dove in. He knew the terrain already. In some ways, not only thanks to being in the league, but being friends with Gus Malzahn. He saw a lot of Auburn, being down there when his kids went to school there, and visiting with Malzahn. He understood the complexity, and it's a complex job. There are a lot of things you have to check, and he got all that he got all that before day one. Most people can get down there and adapt. It's happened before. I don't think it would have ever happened with Kiffin.
And we know it never would have happened with Harsin.
No, and I'm at a disadvantage. I mean, as much as I love to make fun of people, I genuinely like Hartzell. In fact, we texted not long ago. He saw me on something and was checking in with, he's. I mean, you don't want to beat up on this guy because he's like a lost dog. You just want to help him home, and fortunately, he's found his way home. He should have never gotten that job. I don't blame him for taking it. I do blame him for not making the most out of it, though, because I think he was a good enough football coach, X's and O's, that if he had hired the right people around him, if he'd been willing to listen, he could have been more successful. But it's over. So the Hartzell jokes will go on deaf ears, other than what I've already said here today.
How do you think, from an alignment standpoint? I mean, you've been around a long time. I mean, for me, it looks like Auburn is more aligned than it's been since Pat Dye, Bobby Louder days. What are your thoughts?
I'm glad you mentioned Bobby Louder, because I spent a lot of time around him in my career. And for all the criticism that Bobby Louder received, Ronnie, he was really a tremendous benefit to Auburn. He ran that program, and he had consensus on the board. Don't ever think he didn't. But there was no gray area. And a guy like Brian Harsin would have never made it very long. He would have never been hired, first of all. And I think with John Cohn in there, he understands the SEC. He understands small towns, how the political hierarchy is. I think the president down there, while not the critical factor in day-to-day, is important. And I say that because I ran into, I'll try to remember his name, but it was 5:30 in the morning about 2 years ago. I ran into Steve Leaf at the Charlotte airport. I was flying somewhere, and he was the former Auburn president, and he was still belly aching about how he was treated. And that's your guy. If you want to blame somebody for the last 5 years, 5-6 years of Auburn football, that's your guy. He's the one that gave Malzahn the raise when he should have been fired. He's the one that brought in the AD that should have never come in, and he's ultimately at blame for the mess that Auburn's in. A president, no less.
No question. No.
Paul, how much do you think that aspect of things, at the end of the day, I guess what percentage of that would you say is important to a team's long-term success? Like, I mean, I think you look at what Nick Saban has done at Alabama, other successful programs. The word autonomy gets thrown around a lot. With Hugh Freeze in place now, that's not something we've really heard that much. We heard it about, with Brian Harsin the last year he was there. Oh, he doesn't have control over X, Y, and Z within his program. How much of that do you think is factual and actually, really plays a part in the success of a program? And how much of that do you think can be overblown in some instances?
I think it's critical. And what people don't understand is the president of the university is not down there at the athletic department every day, checking to see if everyone gets to practice on time. But he signs off on the people who do, and is alerted when there are problems. And if there isn't alignment, it's a cliche phrase, but it's important and it's critical. You can't overblow that. And I've seen schools that have failed because there was not commonality. Now, going back, you mentioned Saban. What was the key to Nick Saban's success at Alabama? Some people say, well, he's the greatest coach of all time. Well, he very well has turned out to be the greatest coach of all time, but he had an athletic director in Mal Moore on day one who understood him. Mal Moore's history, not to give a manifesto here on ancient history, was Bear Bryant's offensive coordinator. He knew the way the game was played at the highest level with the greatest coach. And Mal went out and brought in Saban. He convinced Saban that there would not be any interference. You had a president down there who understood that paying money was important. And when Saban came in, he went a step further. Nick Saban went to every booster club that mattered, and he read them the riot act. I mean, think about this. He literally walked in using foul language and said, you people stay the blank away from me. And what he meant by that is, I want you to support the program, but don't get in my way. I know what I'm doing. And that helped Saban develop a recruiting plan without interference. And I think that's always been one of the problems at schools is you have, it was always the problem at Alabama. You always had too many people in the middle of it. Now that really, Auburn has been more fortunate, I think, if you look at history. All the names of people get criticized, that you hear criticism of, Louder, Jimmy Rain. These in some ways are the folks that have helped the program the most. I remember running into Jimmy Rain about 5 years ago at an event I was hosting in Birmingham. And he looked at me and said, "Can you believe we just gave the football coach," he used that phrase. I mean, he was the chairman of the board of trustees. He said, "Can you believe we gave the football coach a contract extension?" And I said, "I thought you were involved." And he just shook his head. And what he was talking about was with Malzahn's last extension. And, you can say whatever you want about Jimmy, but he knows football. He really does. And he and Louder together made a very good team. And they weren't the only ones. There were other people that had a seat at the table. But for the success that Auburn has had in football over the last 40 years is really due to those men understanding that you can't have too many people in the way. And I know that sounds contradictory to what a lot of people believe, because it's so easy to go on a message board and take a shot at the biggest and the most well-known and the richest. But in Auburn's case, those people have helped.
Remember when Saban was hired at Alabama, our friend Pat Smith called me. He said, "Well, what do you think?" I said, "Things are about to change," and they certainly did. And I think a big thing that helped Saban was that it was almost, I mean, you tell me, Paul, it was almost like Tuberville checked out at the end.
Well, Tuberville was obsessed with Saban. And instead of going after Saban, he sat around and complained about Saban. I know because I was friends with Tuberville and I heard this. And it's too bad because Tommy Tuberville was a good football coach. And he could have dealt with Saban had he not gone through all the Jetgate stuff. And listen, not enough time to go back and detail all that. But he was slipping. And that's how tough these guys were. The only mistake that was made, or the biggest mistake that was made, is that the university got involved in that. That you do that stuff back channels. You do not, get the president and the athletic director on the school plane or Bobby Louder's plane and go up as a group. Tuberville knew about that before the plane got back, and he made sure that the world knew about it, which saves his job. Now, in fairness to Tuberville, he went out the next year and had a perfect season. it was unfair that he didn't win the national championship. Had he won, things may have been different, but he never could get over it. So by the time Nick Saban showed up, Tommy Tuberville was not recruiting well. He was gone. You're right, Ronnie.
Speaking of Jetgate, what are your thoughts on Petrino and Jimbo getting along this season?
Well, I don't have a lot. I haven't had a lot of encounters with Bobby Petrino, but the last one I did have was in Russ Campbell's office, Ronnie, who you know is a Birmingham attorney who represented Petrino. And Petrino was trying to get an interview for the Auburn job. I guess this was when Chizik got it. And he wanted to talk to me. I mean, he actually was so desperate. I kid you not. He wanted to talk to me and hope that I could help him. Now, I had no more influence than some, guy on the street, picking up grass, picking up leaves. But I sat there and listened to him. He's changed. I genuinely believe Bobby Petrino is not the snake in the grass that he's always been. Now, how they get along, I think, will depend on how well the team plays. If they start falling apart, if Petrino makes the wrong call, then Jimbo will turn on him, and it will be a disaster. But I think it was a good idea, though, because Jimbo was out of them.
Yeah, I agree with you as far as the coaching perspective. I'm not sure how long they're going to get away. I'm not sure how they're going to get along personality-wise. The good news for A&M, if Bobby Petrino does fairly well in his lane and Jimbo blows up, you can always move Petrino in, and he is eminently capable of running that program. I mean, there's not a doubt in the world that he could be a head coach, and I'm sure that was in the back of his mind as he was sharpening his blades before he packed his bags for College Station. It's funny you say that. I posted on the message board the other day, who do you think gets fired first, Jimbo or Petrino? Because if it's Jimbo, then Petrino takes over.
Yeah, I mean, it's I mean, the money is enormous to get rid of Jimbo, but I'm of the opinion that he is going to get things turned around this year. But if I'm wrong, and that's about as easy to be wrong about something like this as to be right, then don't get hung up with the typical sports writer talk. Oh well, they can't buy him off. They can buy him off. We're talking about Texas A&M, and $70 million is a lot to us. It's not a lot to them.
How do you think, jumping out from A&M, how do Texas and Oklahoma fit? And how do you think, from a scheduling standpoint, how does it look going from playing, 3 really tough games a year to playing 8 or 9?
Well, I think the second part of that is going to be dramatic because you're going to start seeing a change in the schedule record that we've never seen before. I mean, and it won't be as dramatic as we think it will, because if you go 9-3, you can still make the playoff, and the playoff is really going to override everything else. It's not the days of easy 12-0 records are gone. It would be extremely tough to get through that. But as far as Oklahoma and Texas, Ronnie, I think Texas is better situated than Oklahoma, which is surprising. But Oklahoma is one of these schools that still hasn't gotten over Lincoln Riley leaving because they were so invested in him, and they had that run of Heisman's and great quarterbacks. They had 3 straight quarterbacks who were Heisman finalists. Two won the award, and they really lost a year in the translation when Venables came on board. I believe he's recruiting a lot better now, and I think they'll bounce back. But Texas is in a good spot now. Texas can't afford a bad season though, because Sarkisian is not exactly on a long leash.
Kind of on that same note, Paul, relating it back to Auburn a little bit, at spring meetings, that was Hugh Freeze's biggest focus when people were talking about the schedule. 8 versus 9 games. He said, well, look, I don't want to play 9 games and then be penalized for a worse record when in another reality, I wouldn't even be playing that many games. You kind of hit on it there by saying that that's going to be the bigger focus as you're looking ahead. I know it's, we haven't even played this season in front of us, but what were kind of your overall thoughts on that 2024 schedule for the SEC and how it shook out, and I guess how many SEC teams, you talked about it, a 9-3 team could get in pretty often from the SEC. How many SEC teams do you see maybe in that first year?
Yeah, I mean, I think realistically you're looking at 3. There could be outliers sometimes, and I thought they did a good job. They took a lot of heat for not going to 9 and being down in Destin that way, guys. I think the conference made the right decision at the moment. And it was kind of awkward because everyone kept, reporting that ESPN had not delivered on the money. So there I was working for ESPN trying to cover a story that involved my bosses who were not exactly forthcoming in letting us know what the deal was. So I think this. I think the money will be there soon, and I think the number will go to 9 because I believe that it will not penalize them that much, and that's why they went to that super schedule you saw with Georgia playing Alabama, things like that. But when they get to the 9-game schedule, I think we'll be right back to where we were a couple of months ago when everybody was reporting what every school was playing in relation to the 3 permanent and then the 6 rotating. And I think it will shake out. I mean, the SEC, as you guys know, is a class system league where you have the upper class, the middle, and then there are those at the bottom who probably are not going to be helped by any of this, but there's not much we can do about it. Auburn's the one that I think has the most to gain because Auburn really is an upper division school that has played in the middle for a while.
Long term, what do you see SEC scheduling wise? I mean, do you see Tennessee and Alabama not playing each other every year, Auburn and Georgia? I mean, how do you see those things?
Yeah, I think there are a handful of games that are going to survive every year, and Auburn, Alabama probably would be number 1, and I think Auburn, Georgia is pretty close behind. That is a game that means a lot to both sides, and I think those games will prevail. Tennessee, Alabama is a tough one because Alabama is on Auburn's list. It's on LSU's list. So I think I mean, can you really realistically make the 3 permanent games for Alabama, Auburn, LSU, and Tennessee? Well, it looks like the league was about to, and that's what Saban suddenly decided he no longer liked something that he had been in favor of for 11 years. He no longer liked the 9 games. And I know that so well because I was the first interview he gave, I think it was in 2010 or 11, when he came out and said, we have to have 9 games. And he never deviated until about 3 months ago when he found out who his 9 games were going to consist of. But I think the league has to keep and preserve those. Everybody won't get 3 good ones because there aren't. Texas will, A&M will, Arkansas will, but South Carolina was a big loser. I mean, Ronnie, their 3 biggest games of the year right now in the conference are, I think, Tennessee, Georgia, and Florida, and they lost all of them.
And that was Paul Feinbaum with some interesting comments to 24/7 Sports. And as we said, Ron Sanders and Nathan King, they're talking about Hugh Freeze and this Auburn program, where it stands and the scheduling model that they're going to use in the future. Wanted to bring you some of that here this morning on this Monday edition of the Recruiting Blitz on Blitz Sports Radio. We're going to go to a break. When we come back, though, we're going to switch it to recruiting. Auburn getting some good news in the last few days, including this weekend as they added to their defensive line haul. And we're going to talk about all of that with Cole Pinkston, lead recruiting analyst for Auburn Live on 3, part of on3sports.com. And he's going to join us next after this break on the Recruiting Blitz on this Monday.
The Blitz has been called. These days, saving time is important, and saving money is even more so. That's where Eagle Masonry and Insulation comes in. Over the years, Eagle has expanded their services to meet the needs of folks like you in our area. If you need masonry, brick, stone, or block work, Eagle should be your first call. They can even help if your property needs grading, erosion control, and Eagle can handle dirt haul-off. Call Eagle Masonry and Insulation today at 256-755-1556. Eagle saves you time, and Eagle saves you money.
Heary, heary! If you want freedom and independence from those high temperatures and those high utility bills, there's only one place to give a ring to, and that is Talent Heating and Air. Thomas with us from Talent Heating and Air. And Thomas, you've got the independence and the declaration to give customers those breaks.
That's right. We're offering free second opinions and service calls starting at $17.76.
$17.76 for those service calls. And there's only one phone number to call, and that is
256-503-4490.
It's Talent Heating and Air. You can also find them online at
talenthvac.com.
That's Talent Heating and Air, giving you the independence and freedom on this 4th of July from those high temperatures and high utility bills.
I'm attorney Gary Lackey. If you've been injured and need a lawyer right now, do you know who you really get?
I'm attorney Jennifer Lackey. You want to talk to your lawyer. My clients talk to me.
And me. I'm attorney Justin Lackey. We're the ones that you talk to.
And we're the ones who handle your personal injury case.
And we'll take care of it.
The Lackey Law Firm. 1-800-4RIGHTS.
No representation is made that the quality of the legal services to be performed is greater than the quality of legal services performed by other lawyers.
With us today, Dr. Tracy Lowry of Best Vein Care of Huntsville.
When we evaluate a patient and they indeed have significant venous disease, most third-party payers, private insurance, Medicare, require us to treat every patient conservatively at least 90 days. Conservative treatment includes increasing ambulation, elevation of the legs, and the wearing of compression stockings. It's very common for folks to come see us in March or April wanting to have their veins fixed before they go into swimsuits starting in June. When we see someone in March or April, they're going to require at least 90 days of conservative treatment before we can even go to the insurance carrier to get permission to treat their veins. So if you think you have a venous problem, now is the time to come in and get a free screening so we can determine whether or not you need something evaluated. If you have a vein problem or you think you may have a vein problem, now's the time to contact us at bestveincarehuntsville.com.
No representation is made that the quality of legal services to be performed is greater than the quality of legal services performed by other lawyers.
A wise man once said, if you take care of old folks and children, everything in the middle will take care of itself.
Hi, I'm Danny Aldridge, lawyer in Alabama and Tennessee. In the next 20 years, the number of those folks over 65 years of age will more than double. In our golden years, the most important goal is to be treated with dignity and have control over doing what makes you grateful with those you love. At the Aldridge Law Firm and the Legal Town Center, we're dedicated to help you with these goals, and we'll be there when life throws you those inevitable curveballs. Let us assist you with your legal needs, whatever they may be or become. You may reach us by phone at 256-534-3188 or online with Dan at danaldridgelaw.com. Just remember, we're here to help. Whether it's personal injury, wrongful death, fraud and cheat, or estate planning made complete, we're here to help.
I'm attorney Gary Lackey. If you've been injured and need a lawyer right now, and pick up the phone to call, you know, one you've seen on a billboard or on TV begging for your business, do you know who you really get?
I'm attorney Jennifer Lackey. You want to talk to your lawyer. You don't want to reach a call center, not in some office 100 miles away. With the Lackey Law Firm, that never happens. My clients talk to me.
And me. I'm attorney Justin Lackey. We're the ones that you talk to. We're the ones that you meet with.
And we're the ones who handle your personal injury case. You want to talk to me? You just call me.
And we'll take care of it. You worry about getting well. We'll take care of the rest.
The Lackey Law Firm.
And I'll go you one better. If you can't come to us, we'll come to you.
The Lackey Law Firm. The Lackey Law Family. 1-800-4RIGHTS.
No representation is made that the quality of the legal services to be performed is greater than the quality of legal services performed by other lawyers.
The Blitz has been called.
Welcome back to the Recruiting Blitz on Blitz Sports Radio. I am D Squared, and now we're going to go out to the Neighbors Wealth Management Hotline as we're going to be joined by a guy that's been with us frequently on this show He's always generous with his time. We're going to talk a little bit of Auburn football and recruiting with him. He is one of the lead recruiting analysts in the On3 Sports Network, and of course, one of the leads that role with Auburn Live on 3, and that's Cole Pinkston, and he's with us on the Neighbors Wealth Management Hotline. Cole, I hope you had a great 4th of July. Welcome back. How are you?
I did, man. I'm glad to be back. Appreciate it.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much. And before we delve into, I know you were live at Pike Road yesterday for Malik Blockton's announcement, big defensive line addition for the Auburn Tigers as they outlast Texas and several other schools that recruited this young man. But I thought it was interesting. You've been kind of detailing and ranking the Auburn position groups on the football team heading into Hugh Freeze's first fall camp that's just a few weeks away. And I wanted to talk about your number one group because you're very high on the running back room at Auburn. You feel like it's a position of strength. And even with the uncertainty right now surrounding Jarquez Hunter, that's very interesting. Hunter, of course, we expect him to be back, but we won't have any clarity on that maybe until we go to Nashville next week. And I'm sure Hugh Freeze will be asked about it. But I guess the first thing is you guys have great intel with Justin Hoganson, yourself, Jeff Lee, that whole staff. What seems to be the thought around Jarquez Hunter's future?
Yeah, we're kind of operating just expecting everything to be okay with him. I don't know all the details, honestly.
Right.
It's kind of they want everything to be quiet on that, and that's understandable. And I just operate under the idea that he's going to be there, and everybody, it seems to be like he will. So, and if he is, that running back room, that's going to be fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, and we remember what Hugh Freeze said about him in the spring, that he was as talented a running back as he's ever had. But I guess that also, and I give you the floor kind of to tell us about the rest of the running back room, because we knew Jarquez was back. He certainly did a nice job as the complement to a young man that we think is going to play a long time in the NFL, who moved on last year. But tell us about the rest of this running back room and why it's going to be the strength for Auburn.
I really think that Damari Austin, who's a former 4-star recruit, is a guy that people need to know more about and talk more about, because even with Hunter getting most of the carries, he's still going to have a big role as a running back. He's actually a pretty good receiver out of the backfield. I mean, he's really a kind of a do-it-all guy that's got a low center of gravity, and he breaks tackles really well. I'm excited, and I think coaches are excited to really roll him out there and see what he can do. Finally, he's been on the bench for a while. It seems like getting ready for this moment. Him, and then, of course, you brought in a 1,000-yard rusher to go along with these two guys, who was at USF South Florida, Brian Batty. I mean, that's another great addition to a room that I thought was pretty strong already. And he's sort of a change of pace guy, smaller guy who can, make cuts and get out in open space and sort of hit the home run ball. So you got really – between those three, those will be your three main guys, different types of guys, and just, a lot of different elements in that room.
Yeah, that's a great point. And Tank Bigsby moving on, he had an underrated career at Auburn. If he had a better supporting cast, he might have even been put up better numbers, ended up going higher in the draft, perhaps first or second round. Certainly has the talent to have a productive NFL career with the Jacksonville Jaguars, as he was taken in the third round. But as you said, still a lot of talent left in that room. And I'm glad you brought up Brian Batty, because he can also add a lot to the kickoff return room for Auburn, some explosiveness to the special teams area. And again, he was really productive with over 1,000 yards at USF. And I think maybe because of so many portal guys coming in and Hunter Spring, and then you just mentioned Damari Austin, he kind of may have been forgotten about, but could be a guy that could quickly just carve out a role and be a part of an offense that needs some more explosiveness at Auburn.
Yeah, and I would be surprised. You mentioned that if he were not the kick returner, one of the starting kick returners for Auburn, and one of the maybe a punt returner in the rotation too. I mean, he's electric, So that's just another element to that room. And you can go back and turn on his tape from South Florida, man. He was very good, and he averaged a lot of yards per carry. And I just think he's a guy that can score from anywhere on the field. I think that's important to have.
And correct me if I'm wrong, he had a big game against Florida last year.
Huge game against Florida. I think he scored 2 or 3 touchdowns and had over 100 yards rushing.
Certainly did. Well, I know you were at Pike Road yesterday, or this weekend, I should say, for Malik Blockton's announcement. We knew going in, we felt like Auburn was in a strong position. I mean, Marcus Harris, his brother, is a prominent part of the defensive line room at Auburn, but still, Auburn had spent a lot of time recruiting him. I know you detailed it with us on the show before. He was a guy to watch. Not surprised that he ended the process before his senior season, but once again, a nice in-state piece for Auburn. What was give us some of the details of what it was like being there and watching him choose the Tigers.
Yeah, he's interesting because Auburn was actually recruiting him before Marcus Harris, his brother, ever arrived at Auburn. Marcus went to Kansas first.
That's right.
Transferred into Auburn, and Malik Blockton was already on the radar. And before he did that, so he was the guy that they looked at when he was younger and said he's got a frame that could really grow into something and become a really good player if he's got the right athleticism. Of course, you start with frame and then you watch as athleticism progresses. And he's done well, man. He's really, to me, he has gotten better and better every year. I've seen him ever since I was going to check on kids over at Madhouse Training in Montgomery.
Mm-hmm.
He's been there working with them and just getting bigger and stronger. And the good thing about Malik is his frame is great. He's got one of those very good frames where he can add a lot of weight and he can still be quick and athletic enough to play. So he's probably going to slide down, be an interior guy, maybe a 3 technique, 4-eye, so not a nose guard, but a guy that can, sort of be a little bit of help on pass rush, but mainly take up a double team on the play side and things of that nature. I just think he's a good player. I think he's a guy you need in your program, especially at Auburn, because I've been covering Auburn football for 2 years now at On 3, and I've seen Malik at just about every Auburn home game.
Yeah, I know he's certainly been a part of that, no doubt. And then, and as you look at it, again, a nice piece to the defensive line room for Auburn. And since we last spoke with you, and you told us about this guy repeatedly, that you felt like Auburn was in a really strong spot to get him, they added to the linebacker room with DJ Barber from that ultra-talented program, Clay Chalkville, and Drew Gilmer.
Yeah, DJ Barber, he's an excellent addition as well. That guy's a traditional linebacker to me. In a world where you've got guys that are more athletic at linebacker, he's sort of that traditional throwback linebacker, which in my opinion has been successful at Auburn. There's been plenty of guys at Auburn that have been that way. Deshaun Davis, Zacoby McClain, KJ Britt. I think he's in that role. I think he's that kind of guy. He's not the biggest guy. He probably doesn't have all the NFL intangibles, but he plays a linebacker position like it's supposed to be played.
He certainly does, and that will basically take me to the next guy. This seems to truly be an old-school Alabama-Auburn battle. I know he's committed to Georgia, but I think everyone's been expecting now for a while that in late July he's going to flip to an in-state school and not end up in the class. He's arguably the top prospect in Alabama. I mean, there's Jalen Mbakwe, the Alabama commit, is one of them that you could say could be. I've seen Jordan Ross from Vestavia, the edge, listed as potentially the number 1 prospect. But certainly DeMarcus Riddick of Clanton, the inside linebacker, is one of the guys in the mix for that honor. And certainly Auburn has had him on campus many times. Talk about where Auburn stands with him as his process looks to be winding down to a quote-unquote final decision coming up this month.
Yeah, DeMarcus Riddick is one of the top, I'd say, 2 to 3 prospects on the board, regardless of position for Auburn. It doesn't matter what position, he's at the top. He's a guy that they consider a must-have, a must-get. And he's committed to Georgia. He committed to Georgia real early. I've spoken with him personally several times about that, and I wouldn't say he thinks he rushed into it, but he really maybe didn't consider that the in-state schools were going to want him as bad as they did at the time. And now Alabama and Auburn, I mean, they are after him heavy. He's one of Alabama's top guys too. So this is a tough battle. This is a chance for Hugh Freeze to show people, you'd show Auburn fans, can you win a battle like this against Alabama? He's in a small town place there in Clanton, Alabama, which Auburn has typically done well in those small town areas in the state of Alabama, like Keldrick Falk from Highland Home a year ago, flipped him at the end. So this is your chance. You're going to have other chances, but this is a big one because it seems like Auburn's gained a little bit of momentum here, even though Alabama was, again, committed to Georgia, but the in-state schools seem to have the momentum. Alabama looked like they were pulling away, but Auburn's evening up now, and I don't know if Auburn can pull it off, but they've got a shot, and I'll tell you what, if they pull that one off, it'll be a big deal.
Yeah, and another thing that's going to be a big deal is the Big Cat Weekend. Let the listeners know when it's coming up, because I know it's at the end of July, and it's something because of Brian Harson's struggles that lost a little momentum the last 2 years, but I know Hugh Freeze and his staff are re-emphasizing it and trying to get that put back on the calendar as a big event each and every recruiting cycle.
Yeah, they have done a good job putting a list together. We've confirmed several names already. DeMarcus Riddick is one of those that's supposed to be there. We're expecting him to be there. Perry Thompson, Alabama commit, wide receiver from Foley. He put on Twitter not too long ago that he would be there, and that's interesting enough as he committed to Alabama and kind of wants to make a decision towards the end of July, which Big Cat Weekend will take place July 29th. So that's one we're watching really closely. You've got Jalen Crawford, a big-time prospect who's having a decision here soon. I mean, the list is impressive. Last year, the list was not bad, believe it or not.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty good turnout as far as most of the guys that Auburn was recruiting at the time. But this year tops it big time and we're not even completely done building that list. So it's going to be and there's going to be plenty of 2025 prospects there too that are, going to be big-time prospects.
Well, and I guess I saw where Jalen Crawford is going to commit soon. Is he potentially the next one, or is in your mind, is there going to be now Riddick could be, because Riddick would do it before his date, I believe, is the 26th, before the Big Cat Weekend date on the 29th. But I know you kind of try to track these. Is there another prospect coming up that you think could go public to Auburn before Big Cat Weekend?
I would say there's three names we're tracking right now, and one of those is Jalen Crawford, a corner from Atlanta, Park View High School. I mean, he's one of the top guys he may be the top corner on the board for Auburn. He's right up there if he's not. Another one is Reese Baker, who is an offensive lineman,
Madison Academy.
Tackle from Madison Academy, in Huntsville. And the third one is Wyatt Simmons, who is a linebacker from Arkansas who's blown up with offers here recently. We're watching those three pretty close. Those are three guys that could possibly make a decision before Big Cat Weekend. You got Preston Talmua is another one who, I think Auburn could be fading some there, but he is also making a decision before. And those are the guys we're watching. And, you never know. It could go a lot of ways, but those three right now, the ones I named, Simmons, Baker, and Crawford, seem like Auburn's in a good spot with those guys.
And before we let you go, I know you had a film breakdown on Auburn Live on 3, but Malik Blockton, as far as where he fits in at Auburn, and as you said, he really on the radar before Marcus Harris transferred from Kansas back to his home state to play for Auburn. Where do you see Malik Blockton fitting in schematically with Ron Roberts and this defensive staff at Auburn?
Well, Malik has told me that they've talked to him about 5 technique, which would be that strong side end, not the edge. It's more so the end with the hand on the ground. And he's also talked about, being at his size right now, which he's about 6'4", 280 pounds. He's probably going to play inside at some point. So he told me himself, starting out at the 5, probably moving into the 3. And I think that's what it'll be. I think he'll maybe have some reps there at the 5 early on, and then as he continues to add some mass to that frame, which I personally think he can get up to about 300 and play there, he'll be at that 3 technique, I believe.
And then finally, because this one was a shocker, because I know you put in a prediction for Auburn. We've had you on the show. I thought Auburn led, so I was as stunned as anyone on that Sunday about a week ago when he publicly committed to A&M. How shocking was it that Cam Coleman chose Texas A&M? And this, I know he has not signed anything. Is Auburn still going to be heavily recruiting him in your mind?
Yeah, it was very shocking. I mean, we had gotten word that it was possible he could commit on the 4th of July, and after checking around and checking on everything the day before that, it just seemed like the two schools standing out were Auburn and Florida State, and multiple sources believed that he was not going to Florida State. So using the process of elimination, it seemed like Auburn was in the best shape, and we've been hearing that Auburn was in the best shape. So really shocking on that part. Auburn's not going to change anything about how they're recruiting him. I mean, he's committed to Texas A&M, but he's still 20 minutes down the road from campus, so they're going to treat it as if he's not committed to Texas A&M, and I think that's the way to go about it. Will they end up with him? I don't know. It's going to be tough. I think A&M obviously made a good pitch with him. NIL, I think, plays a big deal there.
Yeah.
So, Auburn's going to have a battle on its hands to try to win him back, but they're going to work on that, and they're not going to let up. He's the top target, and it's not going to change.
Yeah, I kind of figured they wouldn't let up. I mean, and we'll see, but definitely that was probably the first curveball that I've seen, because Hugh Freeze and his staff, since they got there, have been on top of everything and been, as you said, doing a lot of work with Riddick and Perry Uno Thompson, certainly not conceding them to Alabama. And it just seemed like they had done a lot of work with Cam Coleman. And so that was probably the first surprise to me of this cycle, that that he recruited, or he committed early, and it wasn't to Auburn. I thought Auburn was in really solid shape, because Alabama doesn't seem to be a factor at all. Auburn had done the better job and had been a big-time factor with him. Well, we appreciate the time. As always, man, you're generous with us. Let everybody know how to connect with you and what you guys have going on at Auburn Live on 3.
Absolutely. AuburnLiveOn3.com. Follow us all on Twitter by our names: Cole Pinkston, Jeffrey Lee, Justin Hokanson. We're constantly rolling out content. Right now, we don't have any deals going on, but we probably got one coming soon. We like to have the deals going, so you can still get with us for about $8 change a month, and it's definitely worth it, man.
And don't forget that live YouTube show too. Really good stuff with you guys, along with J-Head, talking some recruiting for Auburn. You do a great job with Auburn Live on 3. We really appreciate it, man. Thank you. We will be talking with you again soon, and have a great rest of your week.
Sounds good. Appreciate it.
Thank you. We're going to go on a break and wrap up this Monday edition of the Recruiting Blitz on Blitz Sports Radio. I'm D Squared.
The Blitz has been called.
You've got to experience Toyotathon at Bill Penny Toyota. They've got the selection with over 700 new Toyotas to choose from. And they've got the extras with Bill Penny perks and a 10-year unlimited warranty. So get on over to Bill Penny Toyota today and experience Toyotathon. Bill Penny Toyota in Huntsville and online at BillPennyToyota.com. Bill Penny's Toyota 10-year unlimited warranty is valid through the 10th year of ownership. Valid on new vehicles only. See dealer for details.
Normally, when you call a roofing company, all you hear is, you need a new roof. Not when you call Fleming Roofing and Restoration. Since 1965, the folks at Fleming have been focused on what you need, whether it's an easy repair or a full roof replacement, commercial or residential. And when it comes to storm damage, you want Fleming on your side. They know all the ins and outs of insurance claims and will guide you through the entire process. Log on FlemingHSV.com and book your free estimate today. Fleming Roofing and Restoration. We show up.
Hey folks, this is Arthur Seat, managing partner of University Kia, letting you know we are proud supporters of Crimson Tide football. Stop into University Kia today and shop our large selection of new Kias, including the all-new Telluride 8-passenger SUV, the stylish new K5, and sporty new Seltos. Visit universitykia.com for all our great offers. And get pre-approved in minutes so you can drive home your new Kia today, because we want to see you in a Kia. Roll Tide.
The Blitz has been called.
Welcome back to this Monday edition of the Recruiting Blitz on Blitz Sports Radio. Big thanks to Cole Pinkston, recruiting analyst, Auburn Live on 3 on 3sports.com, talking Malik Blockton from Pike Road in Montgomery, who committed to the University of Alabama to join his brother Marcus Harris as Auburn Tigers. That's a big get for Auburn. Big Cat Weekend coming up on July 29th. We'll continue to detail that as he's talked about the list of prospects that are slated to be there. DeMarcus Riddick, July 26th. He's supposed to make his final commitment. Will it be Alabama? Will it be Auburn? Seems that Alabama still has a slight edge, but Auburn sure ain't going away. Perry Uno Thompson supposed to be there from Foley, who's been committed to Alabama for a long time. Auburn's certainly not giving up. We'll see if Cam Coleman shows up there. It's going to be interesting. But again, some good stuff. Don't forget, more good stuff later today from 2 to 4, the Bandyman, Bailey Lowry. Captain Cool, John Abraham, bringing you the afternoon blitz on Blitz Sports Radio. We'll be talking with you tomorrow at 9 a.m. More outstanding recruiting conversation. Everybody have a great rest of your Monday. We'll talk to you Tuesday at 9 a.m., everyone.